The rain hammered against the windows of my small apartment in Seattle, mirroring the storm raging inside me. My name is Barnaby, and until a week ago I thought I had it all. A fulfilling job as a marine biologist, a cozy life in a city I loved, and a wife, Callista, whom I adored. We'd been married for 7 years, a period I foolishly believed was filled with unwavering love and mutual respect. Callista was a graphic designer, a creative soul with a vibrant energy that had first drawn me to her. We met at a local art fair, her laughter as bright as the summer sun. Our connection was instant, a magnetic pull that led to late-night conversations, shared dreams, and eventually, a wedding under a canopy of redwood trees in Northern California. Those memories now felt like shards of glass in my heart. The first sign, or rather the first thing that registered as off, was Callista's increasing attachment to her phone. She'd always been active on social media, sharing her artwork and connecting with other artists, but lately it was different. She'd clutch her phone like a lifeline, her fingers flying across the screen with a furtive intensity. She'd snap it shut when I entered the room, her explanation always the same. Just catching up with work, honey. I didn't want to be the jealous husband. Trust was the foundation of our relationship, or so I thought. But the nagging feeling persisted, a small, insidious voice whispering in the back of my mind. Then came the late nights at the office. Callista's firm was working on a major campaign, and she claimed she needed to put in extra hours. I made her dinner, packed her snacks, and sent her off with a kiss, feeling like the supportive husband I always strived to be. Looking back, I was just a fool. The night I found out, I couldn't sleep. Callista was working late, and I tossed and turned in our bed, the silence amplifying my unease. Around 2 a.m., I decided to surprise her with a coffee and a ride home. I knew her office building was in Belltown, about a 20-minute drive from our place. I brewed a fresh pot, grabbed her favorite travel mug, and headed out into the night. When I arrived, the building was dark and eerily quiet. Only a few lights flickered on the upper floors. I parked across the street and called Callista. No answer. I tried again, still nothing. My heart began to pound in my chest. Maybe she was in a meeting. Maybe her phone was on silent. I tried to rationalize my growing anxiety. I decided to go inside, hoping to catch her before she left. The security guard at the front desk looked bored and barely glanced up as I walked past. I found the elevator and pressed the button for Callista's floor. The doors opened to a dimly lit hallway. I walked towards her office, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the silence. As I approached her door, I heard voices, muffled but distinct. One was Callista's, the other was a man I recognized, Jethro, her boss. My blood ran cold. I pressed my ear against the door, my hand trembling. "Oh, Jethro," I heard Callista say, her voice laced with a tenderness I hadn't heard in years. "This project wouldn't have been possible without you," Jethro chuckled. "Nonsense, Callista. You're the talent. I'm just here to provide the inspiration." There was a pause, and then I heard a sound that shattered my world, the unmistakable sound of a kiss, a deep, passionate kiss. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. It couldn't be true, not Callista, not my Callista. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, frozen in disbelief. Finally, I gathered the courage to push the door open. The scene that greeted me was like a punch to the gut. Callista and Jethro were locked in an embrace, their faces flushed, their eyes wide with surprise and guilt. Callista gasped, pulling away from Jethro. "Barnaby, what are you doing here?" I couldn't speak. I just stared at her, my heart breaking into a million pieces. Jethro, ever the smarmy executive, stepped forward, a look of feigned concern on his face. "Barnaby, old boy, what a surprise. We were just discussing the project." I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Discussing the project? Is that what you call it now?" Callista's eyes pleaded with me. "Barnaby, please let me explain." "Explain what, Callista? Explain how you've been lying to me for weeks. Explain how you've been betraying me with your boss. Explain how you've turned our marriage into a joke." I turned and walked away, the image of their faces seared into my memory. I left the coffee on her desk, a cold, bitter reminder of my shattered dreams. The next few days were a blur. I moved out of our apartment, found a temporary place to stay, and contacted a lawyer. Callista called and texted incessantly, begging me to talk to her, to forgive her. But I couldn't. The trust was gone, irrevocably broken. I learned the truth about Callista's affair. It had been going on for months, fueled by Jethro's ego and Callista's desire for validation. He had showered her with attention, praised her work, and made her feel like she was the most talented designer in the city. She had fallen for his lies, blinded by his charm and her own insecurities. As the divorce proceedings moved forward, I discovered something even more disturbing. Jethro wasn't just having an affair with Callista. He had a history of preying on vulnerable women at his firm, using his position of power to manipulate and exploit them. He was a predator, and Callista was just his latest victim. I felt a surge of anger, not just at Callista, but at Jethro. He had not only destroyed my marriage, but had also caused untold pain to other women. I knew I had to do something. I started digging into Jethro's past, using my skills as a researcher to uncover his secrets. I found evidence of financial irregularities, shady business dealings, and a pattern of harassment and abuse. I compiled my findings and anonymously sent them to the authorities and the local news media. The fallout was swift and devastating. Jethro was fired from his job, his reputation ruined, and he was facing multiple investigations. Callista's career also took a hit. She was ostracized by her colleagues and struggled to find work. I watched it all unfold with a sense of grim satisfaction. I had exposed Jethro for the monster he was, and Callista had to face the consequences of her actions. But as the dust settled, I realized that revenge, while satisfying in the short term, didn't bring me the peace I craved. I was still heartbroken, still angry, still struggling to understand how the woman I loved could betray me so deeply. But I knew I couldn't let her actions define me. I had to move on, to rebuild my life, to find happiness again. One day, I received a letter from Callista. She apologized for her actions, expressed remorse for the pain she had caused, and admitted that she had made a terrible mistake. She took full responsibility for her choices and asked for my forgiveness. I didn't know if I could ever truly forgive her, but I knew I had to try. For my own sake, I needed to let go of the anger and resentment that had been consuming me. I wrote back to Callista, telling her that I accepted her apology and that I hoped she could find peace and healing. I wished her well and closed the chapter on our marriage. I started focusing on my work, my hobbies, and my friendships. I spent more time outdoors, exploring the natural beauty of the Pacific Northwest. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. One evening, while attending a marine biology conference in Vancouver, I met a woman named Meredith. She was a fellow researcher, passionate about ocean conservation and dedicated to protecting marine life. We bonded over our shared interests, our love of the sea, and our desire to make a difference in the world. Meredith was kind, intelligent, and compassionate. She had a warm smile and a genuine heart. She listened to me without judgment, offered support without condition, and made me feel like I was worthy of love and happiness. We started dating, and our relationship blossomed. Meredith helped me to see that I was capable of loving again, that I deserved to be with someone who valued me, respected me, and cherished me for who I was. A year later, I asked Meredith to marry me. She said yes, and we celebrated our love with a small, intimate ceremony on the beach in Oregon. As I looked into her eyes, I knew that I had found my soulmate, my partner, my best friend. I learned a valuable lesson from my experience with Callista. I learned that trust is precious, that betrayal is devastating, and that forgiveness is essential for healing. I learned that revenge is a hollow victory and that true happiness comes from within. I also learned that even after the darkest storms, the sun can still shine. That even after the deepest betrayals, love can still bloom. And that even after the most painful heartbreaks, life can still be beautiful. My life with Callista was a chapter in my story, a painful chapter, but a chapter nonetheless. It taught me valuable lessons, shaped me into the person I am today, and ultimately led me to Meredith, the woman who showed me what true love really means. As the rain continues to fall outside my window, I feel a sense of peace and gratitude. I am no longer defined by the betrayal of the past, but by the love and hope of the future. And for that, I am eternally grateful.